Hi, today I will show you how to submit the application for the employment authorization. The employment authorization gives you a legal right to work in the United States. A lot of people, especially immigrants who come to the United States, they confuse Social Security and the employment authorization. Basically, the main document is the employment authorization, and then you can get your Social Security with it. Now, there are, of course, circumstances where you get a Social Security without employment authorization for certain purposes. And you would notice on those Social Security cards, it would specifically mention that it is not valid without the employment authorization, also known as DHS authorization. Um, but it depends on your status. If you are eligible to work in the United States, there can be a lot of different eligibility criterias. We're gonna check on a few of them today. But let's begin with the process. It's pretty simple. Now I have to mention, it was simpler um, about 2 or 3 years ago, if I remember correctly. You were able to basically file the employment authorization application online. Unfortunately, now for some reason USCIS they stopped taking these applications online, so now you have to actually mail it. But nevertheless, the process is still fairly simple. As always, your main go-to website for all of your immigration needs is USCIS.gov. .gov means that it is a government website, so you know it's reliable to get information from there. Why I'm saying this is because there are a lot of third-party websites out there that look very similar to an official um, immigration services, but they're actually third-party, just private companies that try to profit off of you, and don't fall for those you know third-party companies. First of all, it's not very legal what they're doing because you cannot confuse people presenting yourself as a government organization. And second of all, of course, you will pay more money. And third, you are giving them precious information. And, it's easier to give your information to the government than, somebody in a third party. Anyway, let's get straight to the form. So where you need to go is, of course, your forms. That's where all of the forms are. And actually, you will see whenever you go on over forms, you will see that apply for employment authorization is right here. But this is it. This is the form you need. It's I-765, and I will include this link in the description below. And on this page, you will really find everything you need. This is the form itself. You would need to download it and open it up. Now, of course, as always, I always mention, definitely read through the whole instructions manual. It's very important. It's pretty long. It's 27 pages, but this is what gives you all of those eligibility, all of those things, all of those important things that you need to go through. Now, the worksheet, basically here, it's a supplementary. Now, not everybody needs to provide that. So just like with this form G1145, not everybody needs to provide this as well. Okay, so let's go over this few things first, and then we will go into the application. Where to file? You'll find this information on where actually the mailing address in the instructions PDF file. So keep that in mind. Also, let's see. With the filing fee, it really depends. There are certain exemptions. Um, the filing fee is not for everybody, but for most. Now, here is this is the fee, the 410, and then also you do have to pay the $85 biometric fee if you are filing under these categories. And these categories, if you're requesting consideration of deferred action for childhood arrivals, which is DACA. So if you are filing under that status, you do need to pay this $85 biometric fee, and the total it comes up in $495. If you're a beneficiary of an approved employment-based immigrant petition, again, same thing, and of course, same thing here. Like I said, some individuals may be exempt from paying the fees. We will go in the instructions again. They will actually tell you who is required. Now, whenever it comes to the initial evidence, basically your initial evidence will be if you are renewing your employment authorization card, you're providing the copy of the old one. Then you're providing some form of ID. And then you're providing the proof of whatever eligibility status you are applying based on. So there's really not a lot of required documents in there. In the, in special instructions, you will find this explanation for the form G1145, a few notes for the DACA, you petitioners, but this is very rare cases. Now, this one is pretty common. Note to asylum applicants: if you're an asylum applicant, please refer to asylum web pages for criteria for eligibility, including information about the calculation of the 180-day asylum EAD clock. Now, what that means is, if you applied for withholding of removal, if you applied for asylum, if your application is still pending after 180 days, this is what the EAD clock is. If it's still pending after 180 days, you are eligible to apply for employment authorization document. Get it and legally work in the United States, but only after 180 days, and only if the application is still pending, which means that you were not scheduled the interview, or the interview, you had the interview and nothing, you're still waiting for the answer, or you're waiting for biometrics and nothing happened, or you did biometrics and you're waiting now for the interview. Pending asylum, that's what it is. It's that process of waiting, basically, for the immigration office to process your document. So after 180 days, you are eligible to apply for it, for the employment authorization document. Okay, so let's quickly go over the application. I'm not really going to go into much detail, because really this is just filling out your personal information. Like I always mention, don't leave any fields blank. If it's not applicable, put not applicable in there. Just all of the fields that you're going to leave blank, just put them there. Now, the very first one is the very important one, reason for applying. Again, if it's the very first time you're applying, this is your answer. Obviously, if it's a replacement of lost, stolen, damaged, or if it's a correction, sometimes I've seen USCIS sending the cards with one little mistake somewhere in the name, one letter is wrong. I would definitely recommend fixing it. There is no fee for fixing, for requesting replacement. I would definitely recommend fixing it, because a lot of other documents are going to be relying on this document, on EAD, employment authorization document. So if you have a mistake on the employment authorization document, you're going to have mistake on your social security, most likely on your driver's license. You don't want that. Fix it. It's very important to have it correct. Like I said, there is no fee to fix the stuff. And they do actually tell you there's a specific section which explains you in the instructions, which explains you what to do when it's a correction. We will get to it. And then, of course, if it's a renewal, the employment authorization document, if I am correct, if they still do, I believe they issue it for 2 years. Now, I might be wrong. Make sure you double check that information. Make sure, it's updated. And we will probably find it in the instructions. So, whenever you're getting close to that date, let's say if it's really 2 years, at about 1 year and 9 months, 3 months before the expiration, I recommend renewing and getting a new one. You don't want to wait till the very last moment and then not get it on time. Especially if you're, most of the times, like I said, Social Security, when you get it with the employment authorization document card, you have that sentence on the Social Security card that says that it is not valid without the DHS document, which is what they mean is the EAD card. And then really here, part 2 is all the information about you, your address. Just fill it out very carefully. Some of these fields you can fill out on the computer like you see. Some of them you can't. So fill out everything you can on the computer, print it out, and then fill out the rest. Your A number is your alien registration number, which can be found on your, let's see, usually it is given if you're applying for asylum, usually it is given on your very first receipt that you receive. It can also be found on your old employment authorization document. It also comes on your green card. But if you have any receipts from which you should, I mean, if you're applying for employment authorization document, you probably should have, a receipt from something. You would have that alien registration number. But again, it's not all of the cases, most of the cases, but not all of the cases. So if you don't, just leave it alone. And then there's USCIS online account number, which rare cases, I guess. And then your personal information, Social Security, if you have it. All of these consents for disclosure, more information about you, and your last arrival, which is very important for them. So make sure to fill this one out. And this section right here, starting from the 27, this one is very important. Here you have to put the eligibility category. And it's very important to put the correct one, because this is what immigration is going to make the judgment. And you will see these categories over here in the very beginning of the instructions. Just go through it, read through it, and you will find it, you will see it. So for refugee, for example, it's A3. For, like I was mentioning, pending asylum, let's try to find it. Let's see. So we got non B1 on immigrant visa, non-immigrant domestic servant, spouse. Okay. I guess I skipped through it very quickly. Too quickly. Okay, so refugee. Paroled asylee. Okay, there's asylee right here. But we are not asylee because it's pending asylum. It's a little different. This is asylee when it was already granted. So this is A5. But we are looking for pending. Okay, there we go. Pending asylum and withholding of removal. So people who are still waiting. C8. So let's say this is for you. So you would just put C8. Very important to make sure that this one is correct. 27 on page 3. Okay, and then, other things, if they do apply to you, eligibility category, if for example, you're applying C26, then you should have this number. C28, for example, C8, see, this is what we put here. If you entered the eligibility category C8 in number 27, have you ever been arrested for and convicted of any crime? And obviously, you have to answer truthfully. Just make sure you go through all of this. Don't skip anything, assuming that, oh, this doesn't apply to me. And that's it, really. All you do is just sign. If somebody helped you prepare it, or interpret it to you, make sure that they sign it too. Very important. And then you're gonna print it out. Obviously, before you would have to print it out. Make sure to go through it again. Sign it, fill the rest. And that's it, really. That's your application. Now the required documents, let's see, you will be able to find them here. Let's try to find them together. Now we're still this is the eligibility criteria. They explain you. So if you are, a certain status and you're wondering if you can or cannot apply for employment authorization document, this is where you will be able to find your answers. So read through it. And then supporting evidence looks like it, it also if goes here. Okay, so let's see. Okay, and here is the evidence. You must submit all evidence supporting documents, required documentation section of these instructions. Okay, you know what? We're probably gonna have to go there for that information. Blah 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 blah. You must demonstrate this is that. So let's try to find that section. Copies. You should submit legible photocopies of documents requested unless the instructions. Okay, makes sense. Translations. Again, certify your translations. You see, it says here the translator must sign a certification that the English language translation is complete and accurate. Most of the times, you do have documents that need to be translated because we are immigrating from another country. Obviously, we're gonna have documents in different languages. Basically, certified translation, anyone can sign it. It's really just something that says underneath the document that I am and the name of the translator, or not even translator. Somebody else can translate it, but then that person can just go through it and certify it and make sure that it's correct, as long as they can speak, both languages, English and whatever language is being translated. You can also notarize it. I would recommend notarizing it. Basically, what you would need to do, you would need to go to the notary with the person who actually is certifying, so the translator or the person who verified the translation, and they would have to sign it in front of the notary. Pretty simple procedure. Okay, so this is the explanation of how to fill out the application. You will find all of this here. Okay, we are moving to the required documents. Now, the required documents, obviously, there's a fee. It's going to be in the check issued to U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. But let me verify that, because I am pretty sure there was another one that they also use, which is Department of Homeland Security. So it depends in. Let me try to find it and actually answer that question for you. Issuing a check. Check was agency determines you must submit biometric services and fees. Okay. Here's the answer. So you have to make a check or money order payable to U.S. Department of Homeland Security. So it's not the U.S. Immigration Services. It's actually U.S. Department of Homeland Security. So keep in mind, make sure that you write an accurate check, not something you don't need. So of course, number 2 is your properly signed application. Makes sense. And then there are, depends on what you are submitting, there are certain documents that you need to provide. A copy of at least one of the following documents, which is I-94, which is the arrival record, arrival departure record, a copy of your last EAD if it's applicable, and then you have photographs. You must submit 2 identical color passport style photographs of yourself taken recently, which is 2 by 2 inches. There are special filing instructions for those with pending asylum applications. Okay. You are subject to a 150-day waiting period before you can apply for an EAD, and an additional 30-day period before we can issue you an EAD. So the total is 180 days. So don't file before 180 days. I don't recommend that, because I actually personally had a case where a person submitted, applied for the EAD probably like 175 days before, and they denied him. So he lost actually like 2 months because of that. So don't do that. Wait for 180 days and maybe wait for 5 more days just in case, because you want to make sure that you're not wasting your time getting denied and all that sort of stuff. That's really it. That's pretty much it. Like I said, I'm not gonna make it too long. Most of the answers you will be able to find in this instructions manual right here. Let's see now where to file. 65. So where to file? It should be somewhere here. Let's see. Filing locations for Form I-7. So no thanks. So it depends on what status you are basically applying for an employment authorization document on. So for example, following up with our pending asylum case, let's see, C8. This is C8, pending asylum. So this is where you're going to file. Make sure, pay attention to this very carefully. As you can see, they have two different addresses for postal service and for FedEx, UPS, DHL deliveries. This address also applies for when you file with USPS as a certified or express, because this is PO box, and they don't obviously you can't get a signature from a PO box. So make sure that you don't confuse the two addresses. Honestly, I would recommend just sending to this address, a PO box, through USPS, just a regular priority mail without requesting any signature or anything like that. I think this is the most reliable thing. Again, whenever they will receive your application, they will send you a receipt. Whenever you get the receipt, you can you can that's a sign that that's it. Everything was filled out, everything was correct. They received your application and they accepted it, and they started processing it basically. And then on the receipt, you will see the receipt number. You can use that receipt number to check your case status, which you can do right here in this check case status, where you can enter your receipt number, which usually starts with SRC, but it's mostly for employment authorization documents. But then again, it depends really on which service center your application was forwarded to. So anyway, I guess I will stop at that. If you have any questions, definitely let me know in the comments below. This is definitely something I would recommend you doing yourself. It's really not that hard. Just pay attention to everything. The reason I recommend doing it yourself is because you really learn the procedure, and you really take your case in your own hands, and it's in your control. You're responsible for it, and I think it's much better that way, when you know what is going on, when you know what is happening, instead of just giving it to somebody, paying a lot of money, and just forgetting about it and waiting for years and years, and just relying on somebody else to do things for you. So like I said, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Also, if you want to see any other instruction videos regarding immigration, definitely let me know, and I'll be happy to address those. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to subscribe. This is how I will know that I'm actually doing something useful here and not just doing this for nothing. So I'd really appreciate that. And yep, that's it for today.